A very good morning. It's just past 8 this Friday morning and we're back again with breakfast news. I'm Rukma and over the next 1 hour we'll be giving you all the stories making headlines across India and the world as authorities further tighten restrictions in order to break the chain as cases of COVID-19 spiral across the country in almost every state in every corner. Well, the government meanwhile continuing to step up efforts in order to meet requirements to boost medical infrastructure as patients as more and more patients are getting admitted to hospitals because of COVID. Also, all the international updates, news from sports and business as well. But first, here are the headlines. Government takes significant steps to ensure availability of oxygen during COVID. 100 new hospitals to have their own oxygen plant under PM CARES fund. Another 50,000 metric tons of medical oxygen to be imported. Mapping of 12 high-burden state-to-oxygen sources undertaken. Centre issues regulatory guidelines for clearances for foreign-produced COVID-19 vaccines. DCGI will take a decision within 3 working days from submission of complete application. First 100 beneficiaries of such vaccines to be assessed for 7 days for safety outcomes before rollout for further vaccination program. Strict restrictions against pandemic. Weekend curfew in Delhi and Rajasthan from today. Essential services to continue as usual. In Uttar Pradesh, night curfew imposed in 10 districts, including Lucknow and Varanasi from yesterday. NEET postgraduate exam schedule for 18th April deferred. West Bengal Chief Electoral Officer to hold meeting with recognized political parties to discuss campaigning precautions during COVID-19. Preparations being finalized for 5th phase polling in 45 seats tomorrow. Campaigning intensifies for 6th phase. Senior BJP leader Amit Shah and party President JP Nadda to hold rallies at several places. And US President Joe Biden announces new sanctions on Russia, expulsion of 10 Russian diplomats in retaliation for alleged hacking and election interference. Russia summons US ambassador for tough talks, says will respond shortly. And in sports, Manchester United to face Roma in the Europa League semi-finals. Reds secure 4-0 aggregate victory over Granada in yesterday night's quarter-final tie. And now for our top story, a meeting of the Empowered Group 2 was held yesterday as COVID cases rise to review the availability of essential medical equipment and oxygen during COVID. 3 important decisions have been taken, including government identifying another 100 hospitals in far-flung locations for consideration of sanctions for installation of pressure swing adsorption plants. PSA plants manufacture oxygen. 162 PSA plants sanctioned earlier under PM CARES are being monitored for early completion. Secondly, in view of increasing demand for medical oxygen, the government has decided to float a tender for import of 50,000 metric tons of medical oxygen. The Union Health Ministry has been directed to finalize the tender for the same and also explore possible sources for import identified by the missions of MEA. Thirdly, 4,880 metric tons, 5,619 metric tons and 6,593 metric tons have been identified for the 12 high-burden states for meeting their projected demand as on 20th April, 25th April and 30th April respectively. Sources of medical oxygen and their production capacity was mapped to match the requirement of states. States are Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan. In a radical reform measure, the union government has issued guidelines for clearances for foreign-produced COVID-19 vaccines. The Drugs Controller General of India will take a decision within 3 working days from submission of complete application, subject to certain conditions. Vaccines will be used as per guidelines prescribed under National COVID-19 Vaccination Program. First 100 beneficiaries of such vaccines will be assessed for 7 days for safety outcomes before they are rolled out for further vaccination programs. Applicants will initiate conduct of post-approval bridging clinical trials within 30 days of such approval. The move will help in quicker access to such foreign vaccines by India and would encourage imports, including import of bulk drug material, optimal utilization of domestic fill and finish capacity, etc. This will in turn provide a fillip to vaccine manufacturing capacity and total vaccine availability within the country. The rapid rise in corona cases in the national capital has prompted the Delhi government to further intensify efforts to curb the spread of the pandemic. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal reviewed the situation during a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal. Weekend curfew will be imposed from today evening. Timings are from 10 p.m. today to 6 a.m. on Monday. However, essential services will be allowed and people who are getting married will be issued special passes. Gyms, pools, malls, auditoria to be shut, cinema halls allowed at 30% capacity. 1 weekly market allowed per day per zone. Dine-in prohibited at restaurants and only takeaways allowed.
स्थिति जैसे हम देख रहे हैं रोज़ केसेस बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। इस स्थिति को कंट्रोल करने के लिए दिल्ली सरकार ने कुछ निर्णय लिए हैं। एलजी साहब के साथ मीटिंग हुई थी और सब ने मिलके ये निर्णय लिए हैं कि वीकेंड के ऊपर कर्फ्यू दिल्ली के अंदर लगाया जाएगा।
And Tapas Bharacharya joins us with more details on the measures being taken, the curbs being introduced. Tapas, a very good morning to you. Well, Tapas, we are getting quite a grim picture of the COVID situation, particularly in the bigger cities, in the metros. In Delhi, for example, curbs have been increased. Give us an overall review of the situation. What can you tell us in detail? Firstly, on the one hand, about the boosting of medical infrastructure in Delhi.
Right. So a few things that needs to be taken into cognizance before we start talking about the curves and other stuff. The first is the number of cases in Delhi as well as in the country that has seen a remarkable surge, especially in the last couple of days, where the cases have touched over a 2 lakh period in the country, 2 lakh cases in the country, and even in Delhi, where even yesterday the almost more than 82,000 tests were done, and out of that, more than 16,000 people were found to be infected with COVID cases, and the positivity rate, which was a day earlier 16, somewhere in the region of 16%, has now shot up over 20%. So the kind of surge that we are talking about is quite remarkable in the last few weeks, especially at the start of this particular month, where at one point of time, on 7th and on 8th of this month, the cases were nearly 7,000, and it has literally doubled up in the last 1 week. So keeping those things in mind, it was felt that Delhi, the national capital, required some stern measures. There were some measures that were earlier put in place, but it was felt that weekend curfew will be a good way to probably break a chain and get an idea about how things can be rolled out, considering the fact that if there is a slight reduction in the number of cases, this particular the government will feel that the decision has been quite right. But if the number of cases do not subside even by then brace up for some more strong cases by the Delhi government in the national capital. Now, apart from after saying that, the three things that you just spoke earlier also, that the empowered group of meeting took place, where there were three main points that they spoke about. The idea about mapping oxygen sources in almost 10 high burden states, and that was a very important point, because it was felt that as the number of cases were going sharply up in these particular states, the kind of oxygen cylinders or oxygen requirement for these states, that needs to be that needs to be taken into cognizance while one devises a way to deal with the situation. And thus this particular this was felt that almost the manufacturer will be coming out with a list of almost they felt that 4,880 metric ton, 5,619 metric ton, and 6,593 metric ton have been indicated that these 12 states will require on 20th of April, 25th of April, and 30th of April. So it was felt that the numbers, these are the numbers these states would require in the given circumstances, and it was felt that it was needed to have an understanding of this. Also, an identification of 100 hospitals with the pressure swing absorption of plants which manufacture oxygen, especially in the far-flung areas where we do know that the cities, the capitals or the main cities, they are they still have a decent number of infrastructure. But in far-flung areas, the news that is coming out is that there is a real need to provide oxygen and other equipments to those people who are battling the particular crisis. So that was also felt. And the third and the important part is importing of 50,000 of metric ton of medical oxygen. That was also felt that is very much required, considering the situation that we are currently in. So these are the three very important steps that has been taken. And coming back to Delhi's situation, where Delhi at around 10 p.m. tonight will be under a lockdown, will be under a curfew, and so it will stay like that till almost 5 a.m. On Monday. And many places, apart from the essential services, all the other services will be literally shut down, and that will give a the system, the administration, a chance to regroup and assess the damages that has been done. In fact, most of the people will be having difficulty with the non-availability of maids also at most places. In fact, that is also something that they have spoken about, that in the next 2 days, maids will also not be allowed, and also most of the eateries will be shut. Everything will be shut apart from the essential services. So keeping those things in mind, if you are traveling, let's say for a medical purpose, if you have a medical emergency only, then you will be provided that exemption upon showing the prescription. If you are a medical worker, if you are a journalist, they can show your iCard, you will be exempted from that. But apart from that, a serious restriction has been put on the public transport system, especially metros, buses, and autos will only ferry essential services people. So that is one point that has been made very clear. People who are traveling from, let's say, in trains, in flights, they do not need to worry about, because if while showing their tickets, they will be exempted from that too. So measures have been taken, but it is now up to the people to keep those things in mind and try to break this particular chain that has seen a remarkable spike in the COVID cases, especially in the national capital, which is currently battling its fourth wave of pandemic. In fact, yesterday and day before yesterday, in fact, there were more than 17,000 cases, and yesterday more than 16,000 cases were found in COVID positive cases were found in the national capital. So it's a worrisome figure, but the central government along with state governments is leaving no stone unturned to put the situation under check in the national capital.
Right, and Tapas, when we talk about, well, in the earlier wave, when restrictions were at a peak and the curbs were at a peak and, there was a lockdown imposed, there was also the sense that home quarantine was being encouraged. What about this time around? Also, what will be the role of police? Because earlier we had seen that they had played a very important role, even when it came to monitoring COVID positive cases.
Yeah, well, your question has 2 points. Let me just start with the first point that even now yesterday, if you take if you hear the Delhi Chief Minister, he spoke about the fact that if your condition is not bad, if it is not worsening, home quarantine is definitely the best way to go about it. There are different agencies, health agencies, which will be monitoring through phone, through keeping a distance. And if only your condition worsen, then you go to the hospital. There is definitely a paucity of hospital beds, especially in few hospitals, few private hospitals,
right,
where it is almost filled. Although as per the government's data, there are still 5,000 COVID beds that is still available. Most of these beds are available in the government hospitals, where most of Delhiites are not too comfortable of venturing. And that's one of the reasons why we can see that the private hospitals are absolutely filled to the choke and block. And that's one of the reasons that the government is now trying to increase the number of beds also, especially in the private hospitals. It has roped in private hospitals, banquet halls. It has also roped in the hotels, which will be tied up with one or the other private hospitals, and
right,
provide them the quarantine facility. So that part they're trying to sort out. The other part you spoke about, Delhi police, Jawans, and let me tell you that Delhi police Jawans are also getting infected in a manner which is quite worrisome. In fact, Delhi commissioner yesterday also spoke about the fact that because these are frontline workers and they've been working very hard, so they spoke about the fact that these people are also under
a lot of pressure.
COVID, a lot of pressure, and they're also getting the COVID cases in their ranks. So, but they are still working on, and the weekend curfew, the imposition of weekend curfew, and the nitty-gritty that needs to be taken care of, that will be on Delhi police personnel. And we have seen that they leave no stone unturned to work on that, and
right,
hopefully they will be able to put in place a system where their
right,
Jawans will also be safe, as well as this particular lockdown will also be successful in the weekend.
Right. Right, Tapas, thank you so much for joining us with all those details. You keep your eyes on that story and also stay safe as you go about your work. Thank you very much for joining us there. And meanwhile, Rajasthan will have a 12-hour daily curfew from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting today across all cities as part of a series of measures to curb a worrying spike in COVID cases. The curfew will be in effect till the end of the month. Other measures include closing of markets by 5 p.m. daily and the complete closure of all educational and coaching institutions. Factories and bus stands will be exempt from this order. Public functions and sporting events will not be allowed. Weddings can have a maximum of 50 guests as opposed to the earlier 100 guest cap. The Uttar Pradesh government has imposed an 11-hour night curfew in 10 districts with more than 2,000 active COVID-19 cases since yesterday. Night curfew will be imposed between 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. The districts are in Lucknow, Allahabad, Varanasi, Kanpur, Gautam Budh Nagar, Ghaziabad, Meerut and Gorakhpur. Also, board exams for classes 10 and 12 have been postponed till May 20th. While all schools in the state will be closed till May 15th in view of rising COVID-19 cases. The new dates for the board examinations are likely to be decided in the first week of May. The decisions were taken at a meeting virtually chaired by Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath from his residence, where he has isolated himself after testing positive for coronavirus. The Chief Minister also stressed on creating awareness on importance of wearing masks and sanitization. In a WhatsApp message circulating on social media, it is claimed that punishment will be meted out to any person posting messages on corona, barring government departments. A PIB fact check has confirmed that there is no such claim and this message is totally fake. In a morphed image, it is claimed that the government of India will impose a nationwide lockdown from the 15th to the 30th of April. PIB fact check has busted the myth and has clarified the claim is totally false and fake. The union government has not made any such announcement with regard to a lockdown. It has asked people to please not share such misleading images and messages. The National Eligibility cum Entrance Test for postgraduate students scheduled to be held on the 18th of April has been postponed for the time being. In view of rising COVID-19 cases, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has said the next date will be decided later. He added that the decision has been taken keeping the well-being of our young medical students in mind. NEET PG examination is for doctors seeking admission in MS, MD courses. The examination was earlier scheduled to be held in January but was postponed because of the pandemic. Shifting focus to West Bengal Assembly elections, the West Bengal Chief Electoral Officer will hold a meeting today with representatives of recognized national and state political parties to discuss campaigning precautions during COVID-19. Last Friday, the Election Commission had reminded political parties to follow COVID-19 protocols for campaigning after finding instances during the ongoing assembly elections where social distancing and mask-wearing norms were flouted. In a letter to political parties, the EC has reiterated its August 2020 guidelines for campaigning during the pandemic. It said that by violating COVID norms, political parties and candidates are exposing themselves as well as the public attending such election meetings to the grave danger of infection. The poll panel also clarified that the Commission, in cases of breach, will not hesitate to ban public meetings and rallies of the defaulting candidates or campaigners or political leaders without any further reference. And Prasenjit Bakshi joins us with more from West Bengal. Prasenjit, the Election Commission now taking note of rising COVID cases and the flouting of COVID protocols during election campaigning. Give us more details.
Look, Rukma, today the State Chief Electoral Officer will be holding all-party meeting. But in that case also COVID protocol is going to follow because the CEO has instructed all political parties, 10 political parties, including the national and state political parties, that they are able to send only one representative for this meeting. This meeting will be discussing the COVID protocol as you were discussing about this. And the basic thing is that in West Bengal also, I am not talking about the tsunami, but here the infection is increasing. It has touched around 8,000 per day. But testing is also increased, so percentage of infection is not so high so far. But even then, as the 4 more phases are left in the polling, tomorrow will be the 5th phase polling. So, and all political parties are holding rallies, and as you are saying that protocols, norms are being flouted in these rallies and meetings. So left parties are saying that they will not hold any sort of big rallies in future, and other political parties also of the same opinion. At the same time, it was whispered yesterday that possibly the Election Commission was thinking to merge the rest of the 3 phases of elections into one phase, but that was whisper. Election Commission has ruled out any such possibility because that will be a huge task in terms of movement of the security forces. So elections will be in phases as it is scheduled earlier. But even then, how the Election Commission can enforce the COVID protocol, can encourage the political supporters, political leaders to follow the COVID protocol. For that, there will be a detailed all-party meeting today, and all are waiting for the outcome of that meeting of Election Commission. And of course, I think that some guideline will be issued by the evening. Rukma.
Right, Prasenjit, and when we talk about the local authorities, when we talk about the state authorities, the police and so on, how far have they been involved in the process of maintaining, ensuring that people maintain COVID protocols, election or no election?
That's true. This is very difficult to say, Rukman. The point is that as it is an election-bound state, and the ruling political party, the chief minister herself, everybody is in the campaign mode. And but even then, the chief secretary of the state had a very crucial meeting with all administrative top notches. And they have issued a guideline to how to impose the protocols. But so far, the state administration has not designed anything about night curfew or any other thing, whatever is happening in other states. But after the today's all-party meeting, if Election Commission is given any direction to the state government, then obviously we can expect that state government will also try to activate the administration and police force to impose the protocols. So I must say that it is the responsibility of the chief secretary, who is absolutely on toes to control the entire situation. He had a meeting with the health secretary and other health officials and the front-ranking workers. Now it is, again, I'll be saying that the entire state is looking for the all-party meeting, and
Yes.
the guidelines supposed to be given by the state electoral officer or the Central Election Commission. Rukma.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us there, Mr. Bakshi, and for all those inputs. We'll be back with you throughout the day for more. And now moving on, campaigning has intensified for the 6th phase polls in West Bengal. Union Home Minister and senior BJP leader Amit Shah will hold public meetings in Tehatta and Khardaha. He will also hold road shows in Krishnanagar, Uttar and Barrackpur, while BJP President JP Nadda will hold public meetings in Katwa. He will also hold road shows in Bardhaman and Kolkata North Suburban. Nadda will also have town hall meetings in Kolkata and Kolkata North. In a decision which is expected to significantly ease the process for reissue of Overseas Citizen of India cards, the Modi government has decided to simplify the process. This decision has been taken on the directions of the Union Home Minister Amit Shah. The OCI card has proved to be very popular amongst foreigners of Indian origin and spouses of foreign origin of Indian citizens or OCI card holders, as it helps them in hassle-free entry and unlimited stay in India. So far, nearly 37,72,000 OCI cards have been issued by the Government of India. As per the extant law, a foreigner of Indian origin or a foreign spouse of an Indian citizen or foreign spouse of an OCI card holder can be registered as an OCI card holder. OCI card is a lifelong visa for entry into and stay in India, with a number of other major benefits attached to it which are not available to other foreigners. And time now for all the updates from across the world in our segment Across the Globe. US President Joe Biden said on Thursday that now is the time to de-escalate tensions after slapping new sanctions on Russia, saying there is still room for the two countries to work together. Biden's comments came after the United States on Thursday imposed a broad array of sanctions on Russia, including curbs to its sovereign debt market to punish it for interfering in last year's US election, cyber hacking, bullying Ukraine, and other alleged malign actions. The US government has blacklisted Russian companies, expelled Russian diplomats, and barred US banks from buying sovereign bonds from Russia's central bank. National Wealth Fund and Finance Ministry. The United States has warned Russia that more penalties were possible but said it did not want to escalate. The Russian Foreign Ministry reacted angrily, summoning the US ambassador for a diplomatic dressing down to tell him a series of retaliatory measures will follow soon. Russia has denied meddling in US elections, orchestrating a cyber hack that used US tech company SolarWinds Corp to penetrate US government networks and using a nerve agent to poison Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny.
I was clear with President Putin that we could have gone further, but I chose not to do so. I chose to be proportionate. The United States is not looking to kick off a cycle of escalation and conflict with Russia. We want a stable, predictable relationship. If Russia continues to interfere with our democracy, I'm prepared to take further actions to respond. Now is the time to de-escalate. The way forward is through thoughtful dialogue and diplomatic process. The U.S. is prepared to continue constructively to move toward that process.
In Iraq, 4 people were killed and 20 were wounded in a car bomb attack on Thursday in the southern city neighborhood of Baghdad. Iraqi police said the car was parked at a busy second-hand equipment market. Black smoke rose from the marketplace after the blast and ambulances rushed to save the wounded. Police cordoned off the site of the blast shortly afterwards. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. It was the second big deadly bombing to hit Baghdad this year, after a suicide attack claimed by Islamic State militants killed at least 32 people in a crowded market in January. Thursday's attack comes during an election year, at a time when tension between rival Iraqi political groups has often caused violence. The foreign ministers of Turkey and Greece clashed openly on Thursday at a joint news conference in Ankara that began with hopes of improved relations, but quickly descended into acrimonious accusations from both sides. Seeking to ease months of tensions over territorial disputes in the eastern Mediterranean, Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias met Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and Foreign Minister in the first visit by either side since their navies came close to fighting last year. The two countries are allies in NATO but at odds over many issues, such as competing claims of the extent of their continental shelves in the Mediterranean, airspace, energy resources, ethnically split Cyprus, and the status of some islands in the Aegean. Tensions flared last summer when Turkey sent a drilling ship to contested Mediterranean waters, but have eased slightly after Ankara withdrew the vessel, and the countries resumed bilateral talks over their disputes following a 5-year hiatus. Turkish Foreign Minister rejected the charge. However, both sides say they want to continue to try to resolve their differences through dialogue. Military jets and helicopters flew in formation over Israel on Thursday as the country marked its Independence Day free of coronavirus restrictions than a year ago. The customary barbecue and beach holiday celebrations were back in evidence for families who were locked down under a mandatory curfew in 2020. The celebrations for the 73rd anniversary of Israel's 1948 independence provided a moment of national unity for a polarized and exhausted Israeli electorate less than a month after a fourth inconclusive election in 2 years. Ahead of Independence Day, the Central Bureau of Statistics issued updated population figures of 9.327 million, of which 6.894 million are Jewish and 1.966 million are Arab, with 5% other. And leaders of Ukraine, France and Germany will hold 3-way talks on Friday about Ukraine's standoff with Russia over the conflict in the eastern Donbas region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will travel to Paris to meet French President Emmanuel Macron, and they will speak to German Chancellor Angela Merkel by video conference. President Volodymyr informed that the meeting would lay the groundwork for a meeting in the so-called Normandy format, though he gave no indication whether or when such a meeting could happen. He said this is an important preparatory meeting for the Normandy format, adding that the situation in Donbas is now under control. Ukraine and Russia have traded blame over a spike in violence in the conflict in eastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian troops have battled Russian-backed forces in a conflict that Kyiv says has killed 14,000 people since 2014. Ukraine and its Western allies have accused Russia of a provocative buildup of troops near Ukraine's eastern border and annexed Crimea. Ukraine president thanked Turkey for support and said Ukrainian tourists should visit Turkey after Russia restricts naval travel there. And more than 13 crore 96 lakh people worldwide have so far tested positive for COVID-19, while over 11 crore 87 lakh have recovered from coronavirus. The deadly virus has so far claimed over 29 lakh 99,000 lives globally. The United States continues to be the worst affected by the pandemic. So far, more than 3 crore 22 lakh people have tested positive, while over 5 lakh 78,000 people have died of the virus in the US. Top US infectious disease doctor Dr. Anthony Fauci on Thursday said he hopes US regulators will make a quick decision to lift a pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and get it back on track. Earlier this week, a panel of advisors to the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention delayed a vote on whether to resume the J&J shots for at least a week until it had more data on the risks. The US had decided to pause distribution of the J&J vaccine to investigate 6 cases of a rare brain blood clot linked with low platelet counts in the blood.
I hope they make the conclusion of this quickly and get back on track. I hope so, and I believe they will. I believe that ultimately it will get back on track. I hope it does, but from what I've seen, I believe that it will, but I'm going to have to leave that to the regulatory authorities. That's not my decision. But once it does, I think we just got to continue to emphasize that this is a very efficacious vaccine and could be used and be very, very valuable on the global scene.
And hospitals in Brazil on Thursday were running out of drugs needed to sedate patients, with reports of those seriously ill being tied and intubated without effective sedatives. Brazil is one of the countries hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Aid Group and MSF says Brazil's failed response had led to thousands of avoidable deaths and created a humanitarian catastrophe that could still get worse. Brazil has so far reported over 1 crore 37 lakh 58,000 COVID cases, while the deadly virus has claimed more than 3 lakh 65,000 lives. Hospitals in the country are working on a war footing to treat patients. Despite rising number of COVID cases and deaths, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has opposed lockdowns. He has only recently embraced vaccines as a possible solution. And Chile's health authorities on Thursday said they expect a dip in record number of cases and stabilization of COVID-19 second wave in the country due to strict lockdowns, as well as a rapid vaccination program that has fully inoculated a third of the population. Chile has so far vaccinated 50% of its 15 million strong target population with at least 1 dose and given 32.7% 2 doses. The health minister of Chile says stringent lockdowns now cover over 80% of the country, coupled with public awareness campaigns. This might enable to hold elections on 15th May to pick constituencies to draft a new constitution, as well as local government officials. The election was postponed from April. Meanwhile, Chile will today become one of the first countries to release real-world data showing how effective the vaccines have been in reducing the contagion, serious illness and death. Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa on Thursday said most regions of the country will enter the third phase of easing the COVID-19 lockdown from the 19th of April. However, stricter rules will remain in place in municipalities where transmission rates continue to be high. Portugal, which imposed a lockdown in January to curb what was then the world's worst COVID-19 surge, started lifting restrictions last month and has since reopened a few schools, restaurants and cafe terraces museums, as well as salons. Portugal has so far reported more than 8,29,000 cases of COVID-19. As many as 16,933 people have died of the deadly virus in the country. And head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Thursday said there is a strong uptake of COVID-19 vaccines on the continent, but that most of the Africans who have received their first vaccine do not know when they will get a second shot. So far, majority of the vaccines available in African countries have been delivered via the World Health Organization-backed COVAX facility. COVAX aims to deliver 600 million shots to some 40 African countries this year. Africa lags behind most other regions in COVID-19 vaccinations, with less than 14 million doses having been administered on the continent of 1.3 billion. And time now to take a look at what's trending on the World Wide Web in our next segment, Web News Review. And I'll be going over across to Tapas, who will be telling us about all the news trending on the World Wide Web.
Right, thank you, Rukma. And let's start with the first news that is from the Times of India. We picked up, and it's MHA orders 50% attendance in work, staggering time in its offices in view of the unprecedented rise in the number of COVID-19 cases in the national capital. The Union Home Ministry said that its officers up to the level of under secretary can work from home, and only 50% staff need to attend office. In an office, office order, that they say that the ministry said that the officer who attend the office can have a staggering time with the entry into office spread between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with corresponding office exit timings, and those living in containment zone will be exempted from attending office. So that was one of the main news that we are tracking from the from the web. The second story is we are tracking is Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, has hailed a timely response of IAF, the Indian Air Force, to the Ladakh standoff. The defense minister asked the Indian Air Force top brass to draw long-term plans and strategies for capability enhancement to counter future threats. Addressing a top official at the biannual IAF Commanders Conference, the defense minister congratulated the Air Force for its timely and befitting response to the development in eastern Ladakh. He appreciated the IF's focus on reorienting for the future. The defense minister also stressed on the need to work towards integration of the armed forces and to enhance synergy in areas of joint planning and operation. The third story that we are tracking is Yogi Adityanath has called for a strict action against hospitals declining COVID patients. That's a news from the Hindustan Times, and taking strong exception of reports of reluctance and dilly-dallying of certain hospitals in admitting COVID-19 patients. The UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has ordered that a case under Epidemic Act be registered against all those who turn away patients sent to them on recommendation of district magistrate and chief medical officer. So Yogi Adityanath, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, has coming hard on those hospitals staff who refuse to admit patients in their hospitals. So that's another news that we are tracking. The fourth news is from the world of sports that was making waves late yesterday night. In fact, yesterday morning, early morning also, it was all over the websites as well as in social media, and that is from the Europa League quarter-finals. Yes, Arsenal and Manchester United, both the top European clubs, have cruised into the semi-finals, and that's the news from the BBC that we are tracking. Manchester United and Arsenal booked their place in the Europa League semi-finals, keeping alive the possibility of an all-Premier League final by taking care of business in the second leg of the quarterfinal yesterday night. In fact, Arsenal scored what manager Mikel Arteta called an important win in a crucial moment. Gunner produced one of the best performances of the campaign to turn away a potential difficult night into a night of a win. They won by a 4-0 margin, and Manchester United defeated Granada by a 2-0 margin. And United's coach Solskjaer said it is time for Manchester United to take the next step and reach a first final since 2017. So both Premier League clubs are making advances to the semi-final, and hopefully it will be a final and that they will be looking forward to in their career. So that's all from the web review. Rukma, for more news and updates, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tapas, for that web review. And it's time to move on now to more news from the world of sports, this time in our segment Sports Track. The Board of Control for Cricket in India yesterday announced the annual central contracts for the period stretching from October 2020 to September 2021. Indian skipper Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma and fast bowler Jasprit Bumrah have been retained in the A+ category and will receive 7 crore rupees annually. The BCCI, like last year, has divided players into 4 grades, with most of the test specialists like Ravichandran Ashwin, Chiteshwar Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane and Ravindra Jadeja finding a place in grade A with a retainership amount of 5 crore rupees. The grade B has 5 players, including fast bowlers Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Umesh Yadav and Shardul Thakur, who all will get 3 crore rupees. Rajasthan Royals have pulled off a thrilling chase against Delhi in their Indian Premier League 2021 encounter at the Wankhede Stadium. This was yesterday. Morris hit 4 huge sixes as the Royals gunned down a 148-run target on a tricky pitch in Mumbai. The Royals needed 58 runs in the last 5 overs, and Morris, with good company from Jaydev Unadkat, got them past the finish line. Morris hit 4 huge sixes, 2 against Kagiso Rabada, as the former champions opened their account in IPL 2021. Earlier in the day, Delhi Capitals huffed and puffed to 147 for 8 in their quota of 20 overs after being sent into bat by Rajasthan Royals skipper Sanju Samson, who won the toss. It was an innings when not even a single six was hit, quite in contrast to their powerful 189-run chase against Chennai Super Kings last Saturday. And now let's take a look at our next segment, Health. Improper food hygiene can affect digestion. Our correspondent Kiran Bharadwaj spoke to Dr. Siddharth Srivastav about prevention of food poisoning. Let's take a look.
Consuming contaminated and unhygienic food can cause the problem of food poisoning. What are the symptoms of food poisoning and what can be done to prevent this problem? Let's understand from Dr. Siddharth Srivastav. Welcome, Dr. Srivastav.
Thank you.
What are the causes of food poisoning and how does it present?
Food poisoning is characterized by nausea, vomiting and diarrhea. It is caused by germs present in the food. Germs can be bacteria, viruses or the parasites. The germs enter the food by unhygienic practice of the person who is cooking it, not washing the vegetables and fruits very thoroughly, and not washing the knives and the chopper board on which it's being cut properly.
If a person is suffering from food poisoning, what should be the management?
Even if you have food poisoning, do not worry. Just rehydrate, means drink a lot of fluids and water. Take a small amount of food and multiple times. Avoid food which cause aggravation of the symptoms. When you require medical advice is severe diarrhea, high temperature, extremes of age, that is more than 70, less than 10 years of age, and people with special care like pregnant female and person who are on cancer therapy.
What precautions should be followed to prevent food poisoning?
Most important thing is prevention of food poisoning. It can be done with proper hygiene. Wash your hands after going to washroom with soap and water before cooking the food. Wash the food and vegetables very thoroughly, especially if it is being used for salad, because it is not going to be cooked. You are going to eat it raw. Safety precautions are important for food. If you are drinking milk, it should be boiled or pasteurized. If you are eating a non-vegetarian food, it has to be completely thoroughly cooked.
Taking care of hand hygiene and food hygiene will help to prevent the problem of food poisoning. Kiran Bharadwaj, DD News.
And well, let's take a look at all the events that made this day special in history. On the 16th of April 1853, India's first train ran from Bori. These are some of the events that took place. Take a look.
On 16th April 1853, India's first train ran from Bori Bandar in Mumbai to Thane. The 14-carriage train carried 400 guests and covered the distance of 34 kilometers. On this day in year 1889, Charlie Chaplin, the British-born actor and director who became internationally famous for his role in American silent movies, was born at East Street, Walworth in South London. In the year 1912, on this day, American aviator Harriet Kimberly became the first woman to fly across the English Channel. It was on this day in year 1919, Mahatma Gandhi organized a day of prayer and fasting in response to the killing of Indian protesters in Jallianwala Bagh massacre by the British colonial troops 3 days earlier.
And now let's go live across to AIIMS, where Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan is visiting and interacting with doctors there.
जब भी बीमार होते हैं पेरेंट्स के ऊपर क्लेम करते हैं और वो इन्फेक्शन फिर उनके पास जाता है और बड़ा एटिपिकल मैनिफेस्टेशन है. इट इज नॉट ओनली दे विल प्रेजेंट लाइक एडल्ट पेशेंट, दे आर ऑल टुगेदर डिफरेंट एंड दैट इज आल्सो हैपनिंग एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. सो माय प्ली सर, वी नीड टू लुक एट द मैन पावर. It is not only the nurses, we have the OTA we have to look for. We have to look for how we pull the resident doctors. We have to curtail, sir. Maybe we have to cut down on our clinics at this point of time and then do morning OPDs as we are doing in a little bit.
So I'll come to that. I have a suggestion. So thank you, Dr. Zarari. We'll take that up. I just wanted to finish the list that I had so that we are making sure that we've covered everything. I had also requested that we try and ask our students to be online, and those who want to go home should be encouraged to go home, because we don't want the hostel to become a super spreading event. It's very difficult in the mess or in the hostel to have physical distancing. So just wanted some information for Dr. Sandeep Agarwal. What is the...
Good morning, sir. Sir, as of now, amongst the undergraduate MBBS students, 40% of the boys have gone home, but 60% are still around. And amongst the girls, the ratio is again around 40 to 50% have gone home. Amongst the BSc nursing undergraduate students, about 70% have gone home. So these students who are remaining here are usually the interns amongst the MBBS who are working on duty, and also some of the final year and second year students who are having their what is called the exam, which is the redo exam.
Okay.
So few of them are there. But then there are students whom we are trying to persuade to go home. There are foreign nationals in each year who are unable to go because they come from very far.
We should encourage as many as we can if they could go home, because that is also something that we need to do, because as you know, we have some undergraduate students admitted in Jhajjar as a cluster, because they all sit together, have their meals together. It's difficult to have COVID appropriate behavior in a hostel where the toilets are common. So it's important that we start encouraging them also to go home.
So while you will continue, I'll just quickly quip in that these students who are in a higher grade like 4th and 5th year might be required to help us. And also we have to look at whether we should continue with the exit exam, because we want to hold our force. If they allow them to exit, then they generally don't stay. Therefore, we should look at this aspect also.
So exit exam has been postponed. That's actually now being held in June only. All the exams which are supposed to be held in end of April, May, our final exams, we have postponed that to June. One other thing I just wanted to, two other things. One is basically just wanting again both the trauma center and NCI to make sure that the oxygen supply is good enough, because we will start requiring HFNCs in large number of patients, which is something which is at sometimes 60 liters per minute.
Welcome back. Well, that was the live telecast of the interaction that the Health Minister was having with at AIIMS in order to discuss steps to ensure safety and the safety of health professionals at AIIMS. Well, moving on now, let's take a look at today's weather forecast. Here's a look at temperatures recorded in all major cities. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of Breakfast News. Meanwhile, news and updates continue on DD India, so keep watching. Here's a quick reminder, however, as you leave your homes today, don't forget to wear your mask, one of the best, easiest, simplest measures in order to ensure safety from COVID-19 infection. Also, maintain social distancing and hand hygiene. As we go, as always, we leave you with visuals from Universal Studios. Take a look at them. Hollywood, which reopened on Thursday after being shut down due to the pandemic. Annual season pass holders were allowed inside the park the day before its official opening today. Take a look and enjoy. Namaskar.